The red flags were there from the beginning. I just didn't want to see them. Or maybe I saw them and told myself they were something else, that he was protective, not possessive. That he was invested in our relationship, not controlling. That his intensity was passion, not a warning sign of something darker. My name is Emma Richardson, and this is the story of how a simple request, the most ordinary, reasonable request you could imagine, revealed the truth about the man I almost married. A truth that, if I'm being honest, I'd been deliberately ignoring for months, because I was so desperate to believe in the fairy tale version of our relationship that I'd created in my head. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning. I met Marcus Hale at a charity gala 18 months ago. I was 28, working as a marketing director for a mid-sized tech company, living in a nice apartment in downtown Seattle, proud of the independent life I'd built for myself. I'd had relationships before, nothing serious, nothing that lasted more than a year or so. I'd always been focused on my career, on building a foundation for my future, on becoming the kind of woman who didn't need anyone else to feel complete. And then Marcus walked into my life, and suddenly all those carefully constructed walls I'd built around my heart started crumbling. He was 34, handsome in that sharp, polished way that spoke of expensive haircuts and personal trainers. He was a financial consultant with his own firm, drove a Tesla, wore watches that cost more than my monthly rent. He was confident bordering on arrogant, the kind of man who walked into a room and expected people to notice. And I noticed. God, did I notice. He approached me at the bar during the charity event, offered to buy me a drink even though everything was free, and hit me with a smile that could have melted steel. "I've been watching you all night," he said, "and instead of finding that creepy, I found it thrilling. You're the only woman in this room who looks like she'd rather be anywhere else." He was right. I hated these events, all the fake small talk, the performative networking, the way everyone was constantly trying to one-up each other with stories about their success. But my boss had insisted I attend, said it was good for my career to make connections. That obvious? I asked, taking the drink he offered even though I didn't need it. "Only to someone who feels the same way," Marcus said, leaning against the bar in a way that suggested he was settling in for a real conversation. "These things are exhausting. Everyone's playing a character. No one's being real." We talked for 2 hours straight. He was smart, funny, attentive in a way that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. He asked about my work, my interests, my dreams. He seemed genuinely interested in my answers, asked follow-up questions, remembered details. By the end of the night, I'd given him my number and agreed to dinner that weekend. Our first date was incredible. He took me to an intimate restaurant I'd been dying to try, but could never get reservations for. He'd somehow gotten us a table, pulled out my chair, ordered wine that paired perfectly with our meals. He asked about my childhood, my family, my past relationships. He wanted to know everything about me. "I can't believe you're single," he said over dessert. "Smart, beautiful, successful, you must have men lining up." I laughed. "Not exactly. I've been pretty focused on my career. Relationships have always taken a backseat." "That's about to change," Marcus said, reaching across the table to take my hand. "I can feel it, Emma. There's something special here. Something real." It was fast, too fast, probably, but I was caught up in it. Marcus pursued me with an intensity I'd never experienced before. Within a month, we were exclusive. Within 3 months, he'd said, "I love you." Within 6 months, he was spending most nights at my apartment, and we were talking about moving in together. My friends were happy for me, but also a little concerned. "It's moving pretty fast," my best friend Rachel said over coffee one Saturday morning. "Are you sure you know him well enough?" "I know him," I insisted. "Rachel, I've never felt this way about anyone. He's attentive, he's caring, he makes me feel like the most important person in the world. That's great, Rachel said carefully. I don't know. There's something about him that feels a little intense. He's passionate, I said defensively. Is that a crime? I've dated enough lukewarm guys who couldn't be bothered to text back within 24 hours. Marcus actually cares. He actually shows up. That's a good thing. Rachel didn't push it, but I could see the concern in her eyes. I told myself she was just being overprotective, that she didn't understand what Marcus and I had. Looking back now, I can see that the signs were there from the very beginning. I just refused to acknowledge them. Like the way Marcus always wanted to know where I was. Not in a casual, how's your day going, way, but in a detailed, specific way. If I said I was at lunch with a coworker, he'd want to know which coworker, what restaurant, how long I'd be there. If I mentioned going shopping after work, he'd ask which stores, what I was looking for, when I'd be home. At first, I found it endearing. He's interested in my life, I told myself. He wants to be part of everything I do. That's sweet. But gradually, it started to feel less like interest and more like surveillance. There was the time I went to happy hour with my work team and forgot to text him until we were already there. He called me 4 times in 20 minutes. When I finally answered, he sounded frantic. Where are you? I've been trying to reach you. Are you okay? I'm fine, I said, stepping outside the bar so I could hear him better. I'm at happy hour with my co-workers. I'm sorry, I should have texted. You should have, he agreed, and there was an edge to his voice I hadn't heard before. I was worried something had happened to you. You always text me when you're going somewhere. I know, I just forgot. It was last minute. Emma, I need you to understand something. When you don't communicate with me, I worry. I can't focus on anything else. I'm sitting here imagining the worst. It's not fair to me. I apologized profusely, felt guilty for making him worry, cut my happy hour short, and went home. It wasn't until later that I realized something strange about that interaction. He'd made his anxiety my responsibility. His inability to handle me being out of contact for an hour had become my problem to solve by constantly updating him on my whereabouts. But I pushed that thought away. He loves me, I told myself. He worries because he cares. Then there was the incident with my phone. We were watching a movie at my apartment when my phone buzzed with a text. I glanced at it. It was my co-worker Jake, asking about a project we were working on, and set it back down without responding. Who was that? Marcus asked. Just Jake from work. Question about a project. I'll answer later. Jake? Marcus's voice sharpened. The guy you went to that conference with last month. Yeah? He's asking about the Miller account. Let me see. I looked at him, surprised. What? Let me see the text. Marcus, it's just a work thing. Then there's no reason I can't see it, right? He was smiling, but there was something hard in his eyes. Unless there's something you don't want me to see. Of course not. It's my phone. It feels weird to have you reading my texts. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Marcus stood up, his jaw tight. So you have secrets from me now. That's interesting. I don't have secrets. Then show me the phone, Emma. If it's really just about work, if there's really nothing to hide, then showing me shouldn't be a problem. I felt trapped. If I refused, I'd look guilty. If I agreed, I'd be setting a precedent that he had the right to check my phone whenever he wanted. I made the wrong choice. I unlocked my phone and handed it to him. He read the text, then started scrolling through my other messages. With Jake. With Rachel. With my mom. Reading everything while I sat there feeling violated and angry, and confused about why I was angry when I supposedly had nothing to hide. See? I said, trying to keep my voice light. Just work stuff. He handed back my phone. You text Jake a lot. We work together. We are on the same team. Does he know you have a boyfriend? Of course he knows. Marcus, Jake is married. He has 2 kids. This is ridiculous. Is it? Marcus sat back down, pulled me into his arms. I'm sorry. I know I'm being paranoid. It's just that I love you so much, and the thought of losing you to someone else makes me crazy. You're everything to me, Emma. Everything. And just like that, I melted. I told myself he was just insecure, that his intensity came from how much he loved me, that I should be flattered rather than concerned. I was such an idiot. The controlling behavior escalated gradually, so gradually that I didn't notice the pattern until I was already caught in it. He had opinions about my clothes. This skirt was too short, that dress too revealing, those heels too sexy. He'd phrase it as concern. I just don't want other men looking at you that way. You're mine. He had opinions about my friends. Rachel was a bad influence, who was probably jealous of our relationship. My college roommate Jess was immature, and still acting like she's 21. My male friends were automatically suspect. Why would I need male friends when I had him? He had opinions about my family. My mom was manipulative, and always trying to cause problems. My brother was irresponsible, and always asking for money. He'd asked to borrow $50 once, 2 years ago, which he'd paid back immediately. Slowly, without really noticing it happening, my world got smaller. I saw Rachel less. I skipped my college reunion. I made excuses not to visit my parents as often. I stopped going to work happy hours. I declined invitations to girls' weekends. All because it was easier than dealing with Marcus's reaction when I did those things. Easier than the interrogation about who was there, what we talked about, why I needed to spend time with other people when we had each other. Easier than the sulking, the accusations, the guilt trips. I just feel like I'm not your priority anymore, he'd say whenever I made plans that didn't include him. I thought we were building a life together. But you're always running off to see other people. So I stopped running off. I made him my priority. My only priority. And I told myself this was what love looked like, putting your partner first, making sacrifices, building a life together. 8 months into our relationship, Marcus proposed. It was elaborate and public. He rented out a rooftop restaurant, had a photographer hiding in the wings, invited what few friends of mine he approved of plus all of his friends. He got down on one knee and gave a speech about how I was his soulmate, his everything, how he couldn't imagine life without me. Everyone was crying. The ring was gorgeous. I said yes because what else could I say with 50 people watching and cameras rolling? But even in that moment, with Marcus sliding the ring onto my finger and everyone applauding, I felt a flutter of something in my chest. Not excitement. Not joy. Something darker. Fear. I pushed it down. This is what I want, I told myself. This is what I've been working toward. Marriage. Partnership. Someone who loves me intensely and completely. We set a date 6 months out. Marcus wanted to get married sooner, but I insisted I needed time to plan properly. Really, I needed time to breathe, to think, to figure out why I felt like I was drowning instead of floating on cloud 9. 2 months after we got engaged, I moved into Marcus's house. It was bigger than my apartment, in a better neighborhood, and he'd convinced me it made financial sense. Why pay rent on my place when we were getting married anyway? I gave up my apartment. The place I'd worked so hard to afford, the space that had been mine alone, my refuge. I packed up my things and moved into Marcus's immaculate, cold, modern house where everything had its place and nothing felt like home. "We'll redecorate," Marcus promised. "Make it ours. I want you to be comfortable here." But every time I suggested a change, he had a reason why his way was better. The couch I wanted was too big for the space. The paint color I liked would clash with the floors. The artwork I'd collected over the years was not really the aesthetic we are going for. Slowly, my things disappeared into the guest room closet. The house remained stubbornly his, and I was just living in it. Then came the incident that should have been my wake-up call, the moment I should have grabbed my things and run. But instead, I made excuses, rationalized, convinced myself I was overreacting. We were at dinner with Marcus's colleagues, a stuffy, formal affair at an expensive steakhouse. I was wearing a dress Marcus had picked out, making conversation with people I barely knew, playing the role of the perfect fiancé. I'd had 2 glasses of wine over the course of 3 hours, just enough to take the edge off my anxiety. One of Marcus's colleagues, a friendly man named David, was telling a story about his recent vacation to Greece. "You and Emma should go," he said to Marcus. "It's beautiful. Perfect for a honeymoon." "We are actually thinking about Bora Bora," Marcus said, his hand tightening on my thigh under the table. "Oh, I didn't realize you'd decided on Bora Bora," I said lightly. "I thought we were still discussing options." The table went quiet. Marcus's fingers dug into my leg, hard enough to hurt. "We talked about this," he said, his voice pleasant but his eyes cold. "We mentioned it, but we didn't decide." "Emma," he interrupted, "this isn't the time or place for this discussion." I felt heat rising to my cheeks. I'd been publicly chastised like a child. I excused myself to go to the bathroom, blinking back angry tears. When I came back, Marcus was laughing with his colleagues like nothing had happened. He smiled at me as I sat down, his hand returning to my thigh, gentler this time, but still possessive. A silent reminder, "You're mine. Behave." The car ride home was silent. When we got to the house, I went straight to the bedroom, started getting ready for bed. Marcus followed me. "You embarrassed me tonight," he said. I turned to face him, anger finally breaking through the careful control I'd maintained all evening. "I embarrassed you. You dismissed me in front of your colleagues. You made me look like an idiot. I corrected a misunderstanding. You shut me down. And since when did we decide on Bora Bora? We looked at one website together. That's not deciding. We discussed it extensively." "No, Marcus. You talked about it. You told me all the reasons why it's the perfect destination. I listened. That's not the same as making a decision together." His face hardened. "So now you're saying you don't want to go to Bora Bora for our honeymoon. Great. That's just great. I spend hours researching the perfect location, pricing out the best resorts, planning an amazing trip for us, and you throw it back in my face." "I'm not throwing anything in your face. I'm just saying we should decide together." "We did decide together. You just don't remember, because you'd had too much to drink tonight." I stared at him. "I had 2 glasses of wine over 3 hours. You were tipsy. Laughing too loud." Touching David's arm when he was telling his story. "Do you have any idea how that looked? I was being friendly. You were being inappropriate. And now you're gaslighting me about the honeymoon, because you were too drunk to remember our conversation." I felt like I was losing my mind. Had we decided on Bora Bora? Had I forgotten? No. No, I would remember that. I'd remember agreeing to something so important. Wouldn't I? "I'm going to bed," I said, too exhausted to argue anymore. "Of course you are," Marcus said. Run away. That's what you always do when you don't get your way. I climbed into bed and lay there in the dark, my mind racing. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. But I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. The breaking point came 3 weeks later, and it came from the most innocuous source imaginable: a girl's trip. Rachel called me at work on a Tuesday afternoon. "Emma. Great news. You know how we've been talking about going to wine country for forever? Well, Jess can get her family's timeshare in Napa for the last weekend in May. 3 nights, 4 days, just us girls. Please tell me you're in." My heart leaped. A weekend away with my friends. Time to breathe, to be myself, to remember who I was before Marcus. Yes. Absolutely. After I hung up, I immediately felt the familiar knot of anxiety in my stomach. I'd have to tell Marcus. And he was not going to be happy. I waited until that evening, until after we'd eaten dinner, until he was relaxed on the couch watching the news. I sat down next to him, trying to keep my voice casual. "So, Rachel called today with fun news. She got a timeshare in Napa for the last weekend in May. She's planning a girls' trip, just her, Jess, and me. 3 nights. I said I'd go." I watched Marcus's face carefully. His expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. "You said you'd go. Without asking me first." I didn't think I needed permission. "Permission?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what you think this is about? Permission?" "I just meant. The last weekend in May is Memorial Day weekend," Marcus said, his voice dangerously quiet. "My parents are hosting their annual barbecue. I told you about this months ago. You're expected to be there." I don't remember you mentioning that." "Of course you don't remember. You don't remember anything I say anymore. You're so wrapped up in your friends, your wants, your needs that you can't be bothered to remember commitments we've made together. Marcus, if you told me about your parents' barbecue, of course I'll be there. I'll just tell Rachel I can't make it." "No," he interrupted. "Don't bother. Go on your girls' trip. Have fun. Clearly, that's more important to you than me or my family. That's not fair." "You want to know what's not fair, Emma? What's not fair is that I'm planning a wedding, building a life with someone who still acts like she's single. Who makes plans without consulting me. Who prioritizes her friends over her future husband. I do not prioritize my friends over you." I was shouting now, frustrated and confused and angry. "I barely see my friends anymore. I've given up so much." "Given up?" Marcus stood up, towering over me. "What have you given up? You live in this beautiful house. You have everything you could possibly want. You have a man who loves you, who wants to build a life with you, who would do anything for you. And you're complaining about giving things up. I just want one weekend. You want one weekend away from me. That's what you're really saying. You're tired of me. You need a break from our relationship." "No. God, Marcus, why do you always twist everything I say?" "I'm not twisting anything. I'm just hearing what you're actually telling me. You want space. You want time away. Fine. Go on your trip. But don't expect me to be happy about it." He walked out of the room, leaving me sitting there feeling like somehow, in a conversation about a simple girl's trip, I'd become the villain. I went to bed that night with my mind spinning. Why did I feel so guilty? I hadn't done anything wrong. I'd made plans with my friends, plans for 3 months away. That was normal. That was healthy. Wasn't it? The next morning, Marcus was cold. He barely spoke to me over breakfast, gave me a perfunctory kiss before leaving for work, didn't text me all day. By evening, I was a wreck. I couldn't stand the silence, the distance, the feeling that I'd done something terrible. When he got home, I was ready with an apology. "Marcus, I'm sorry about last night. You're right. I should have checked with you before making plans. I'll call Rachel and tell her I can't go." He looked at me for a long moment, then pulled me into his arms. "Thank you," he said into my hair. "That means a lot to me. I know I overreacted. I just love you so much, and the thought of you needing to get away from me, even for a weekend, it made me crazy." I relaxed into his embrace, relieved that the crisis was over. "See?" I told myself. "He's not controlling. He just loves me. And I do need to be more considerate of his feelings." I called Rachel that night and told her I couldn't make the trip. I made up an excuse about work, couldn't bring myself to tell her the real reason, that my fiancé didn't want me to go. "Emma," Rachel said carefully, "is everything okay? With you and Marcus?" "Everything's great," I said automatically. "Why?" "It's just, we never see you anymore. You've cancelled on the last 3 times we've tried to get together. And now this trip. I'm worried about you." "There's nothing to worry about. I'm just busy with the wedding planning and work and everything. I promise, after the wedding, things will calm down and we'll spend more time together." But I knew, even as I said it, that it was a lie. After the wedding, it would only get worse. Once we were married, Marcus would have even more say over my life, even more claims on my time, even more reasons why I should prioritize him over everyone and everything else. The thought made me feel sick. 2 days later, I was at work when I got an email from my boss asking me to come to her office. My stomach dropped. Had I done something wrong? Was I in trouble? I knocked on Susan's door, and she gestured for me to sit down. "Emma, I wanted to talk to you about the Seattle Tech Summit next month. As you know, it's one of the biggest events in our industry. I'd like you to attend as our company representative. It's 3 days, all expenses paid, great networking opportunity. What do you think?" My first thought was yes, absolutely. This was exactly the kind of professional opportunity I'd been working toward. The Seattle Tech Summit was huge, industry leaders, cutting-edge presentations, connections that could advance my career significantly. My second thought was, Marcus is going to lose his mind. "That sounds amazing," I said carefully. "Can I check my calendar and get back to you tomorrow?" "Of course. But Emma, this is a big deal. This is the kind of visibility that could lead to a promotion. I'm offering it to you because I think you're ready for the next level. Don't let it pass you by." That evening, I tried to bring it up casually over dinner. "Something exciting happened at work today. Susan asked if I wanted to represent the company at the Seattle Tech Summit next month." "The Tech Summit?" Marcus looked up from his phone. "That's a 3-day event, isn't it?" "Yes. Wednesday through Friday. It's a huge opportunity. Next month. That's less than 4 weeks before the wedding." "I know, but..." "Emma, we have final dress fittings, cake tastings, meeting with the florist, seating charts to finalize. How exactly do you plan to do all of that if you're at some conference?" "The conference is midweek. We can schedule the wedding stuff around it." "No." He said it flatly, definitively. "No, you're not going." I felt anger flare in my chest. "Excuse me. You heard me. You're not going to this conference. We have too much to do for the wedding. Your priority right now should be becoming my wife, not chasing some career opportunity that probably won't amount to anything anyway. Probably won't amount to anything. Marcus, this could lead to a promotion. A promotion you won't need once we are married. We've talked about this. Once we are married, you're going to go part-time, so you can focus on the home, on starting a family. Why are you acting like your career still matters? I stared at him, genuinely shocked. We have never talked about me going part-time. Never. Yes, we have. Multiple times. You just don't listen. That phrase again. You just don't listen. You don't remember. You're always forgetting what we discussed. The constant implication that I was somehow unreliable, forgetful, not quite trustworthy. It was gaslighting. I knew that now. I'd known it for a while, but hadn't wanted to use that word, hadn't wanted to apply such a serious term to my relationship. But that's what it was. Marcus was systematically making me doubt my own memory, my own perceptions, my own reality. I'm going to the conference, I said quietly. No, Emma. You're not. I'm going. This is my career. My opportunity. You don't get to tell me I can't go. Subscribe to this channel to keep getting these important messages. To keep being reminded of your own worth, your own strength, your own right to a life that feels authentic and free. We post new content every single week, and each story is carefully crafted to inspire, educate, challenge, or comfort, often all at once. Thank you so much for watching this entire story. In a world of quick takes and surface-level content, you chose to invest time in a deep, nuanced exploration of a difficult topic. That says something beautiful about who you are, someone who values substance, who cares about understanding complex issues, who believes that stories have power to change lives. Your engagement with this content, your views, your likes, your comments, your shares, literally saves lives. I mean that without exaggeration. Every person who watches this and recognizes their own situation is a potential life saved. Every person who watches this and learns to spot red flags is someone who might avoid years of pain. Every person who watches this and feels validated in their decision to leave is someone whose healing journey just got a little bit easier.